What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the video. For those new to the channel, my name is Nate. I own a custom integration company, meaning I help people implement technology into their homes and businesses. Today's video, we have some wiring for a internal network as well as Unifi Protect cameras for a local business. You'll notice that this house is just like most of the ones that you see in our videos. It is a older New England home that has had multiple additions, was definitely a residential property previously. This business purchased it and they're going to use it as their office. So we have all sorts of tips and tricks of how you get cables into hard to get places when it's in a residential building. The first thing that you're going to see us do is we always mount a switch cabinet or a small rack for all of our equipment. It keeps it nice and organized, out of the way. Employees don't end up touching it, or homeowners, things like that. This is a traditional build here in Connecticut, so it's either going to be cinder block wall or it's going to be a poured foundation. This happens to be cinder block. So we do a backer board, so it's 2x4s spaced directly where we know our mounting location on our switch cabinet is, and then that gets a 1/2-inch sheet of plywood that is covered in fire-rated paint. Nobody ever sees those types of things, but we take pride in our work. We always try and make sure everything's level, square, it looks nice, it's done correctly. So we ended up doing all four corners of the home, or the building, with Unifi G4 Pro cameras. So you'll see us pulling spools of cable here because it is Cat 6 direct burial or outdoor rated cable. We did that because the way the house was constructed, there was just no way we were going to get the drops, and there was no attic space. So there was no way we were going to get the drops high enough to where we needed them without them being exposed to a degree. So we decided that we were going to go with outdoor rated cable. So what we ended up doing, the whole building is aluminum siding as opposed to vinyl. So we don't have the option to move the siding to hide our cable as well. So what we did is we chose the four corners, we popped out directly above the foundation, and then we use a coax or a Cat 6 bushing, brought our cable over to the edge of the siding, and then used the siding to conceal it all the way up. This could be exposed cable with it being outdoor rated, so it's shielded, but it does give you quite a bit more protection over like an internal or an interior riser cable. The only downside to the outdoor rated cable is it is difficult to terminate into an RJ45. It's similar to like a 6A where it's a much wider sheathing because it is shielded, but the benefit is worth it in our scenario. At the end of the video, you'll see the rack where it is all terminated directly into the switch. This will end up getting a patch panel with patch cables in between the switch and the patch panel. We didn't have any in stock, and this was a rush job. The client needed it as soon as possible. So we told them we can get it up and running, but we'll come back and clean it up once we have the correct parts in stock. So we ended up just putting a brush plate directly behind or directly below the switch and running the cables up. So this side of the house, you'll see there was a crawl space in between because it was an addition, which is very common here in New England. Houses have lots of additions on top of them. So we had to get into that crawl space. But the problem is the bottom of the joists in the addition were insulated with 4x8 sheets of rigid foam. So that is why you see us with the big, long, flexible drill bit. It allowed us to go in, and then we had to drill down about 4 inches after that to get below that foam so we could get a push rod through and we could actually snake our wire. So lucky for us, it was probably like 95 degrees that day. I had the pleasure of climbing into the crawl space to grab the wire. If anyone, I think our next hire is definitely going to be someone smaller than me and Pat so that we can send them into the tight spots. But we were able to get the wire. We went ahead and stapled it up all along the top there and then popped out on that corner. No problem. Good to go. So you can see those are all the stacked up like surplus sheets of that rigid foam. It looks like they had quite a bit of it. It's not super common. I don't see this type of insulation done frequently, but it was everywhere here. So the next step you're going to see is me putting in the U6IW, like I've talked about in videos past. We do a lot of these in retrofit applications when getting a cable drop or a PoE drop all the way up into the ceiling is not always possible. I really like these, especially because this is going to be an office space, so it doubles as an access point, and then you also have a 4-port switch on the bottom of it. These can even actually push PoE out of that first spot on the actual access point. So as long as you are in a PoE++ port on the head end, you can push PoE power out of one of these, which is pretty interesting. Like I said, we do a ton of these. They're very easy to mount. They mount right to a single gang box. Fortunately, you can see right below where I'm working, the coax is just shot up right through the carpet. So it didn't take a whole lot of work for us to find where on the sill plate that wall was for us to drill up into it. We see it pretty frequently here. I don't know if it's a rule for like the ISP employees that they're not allowed to fish walls, but we see them pop coax or cat cables all the time, just up like an inch off of the floor or off of the wall directly through. So here you see me measuring for another Keystone location. So we have a template that we 3D printed that does a single gang or a double gang. Makes it very nice. The only thing I wish it had was a bubble level in it. I think we have a new STL print with one that can take a bubble level. So as you see, I start here with the jab saw, which is something that I typically use. However, I realized that it is double stacked 5/8 inch drywall, which was a real pain. So I ended up using an oscillating saw and just cutting those out real quick. So this is 2 bedrooms, or definitely was 2 bedrooms previously, on a shared wall. So that's why I intentionally chose this wall to put both of our dual Keystone ports so that I could fish up the same hole from the basement side of things. So here I'm just terminating, I'm just doing punch downs for Keystones that will end up going into a dual wall plate there. A good trick that I actually talked about on the Quick Tech live stream that I did a couple weeks ago with Tony. We were doing another job for a buddy of ours, Joe, who owns Capture the Concept here in Connecticut. We were talking about, so we pulled 6A for him, and we only brought 1 spool. And he asked how we were going to label them and how we were going to remember which was which and how that was going to work. And I told him that we just use the footage left on the reel to tell which is which. So any low voltage cable, especially in our world, so speaker cable, whether it's 16.2, 14.2, 14.4, Cat 5E, Cat 6, Cat 6A, they're all labeled with the amount of feet, typically, at least the brands that we use, labeled with the amount of feet in the box and then the amount of feet remaining. So if I pull on the spool and I start at 1,000 and I pull a 200-foot run, then I know at the end of that cable it's going to say 800, and the next one is going to, and when I double it up, it's going to say 600. So it's a really easy way that if you forget to label your cable, you can go A and B very easily without having to tone it after it's done. It is inevitable. You're going to forget to label a cable at some point or another. It's a pain. I wish it didn't happen, but even us, we pull cable all the time, and it does happen frequently. So here you see me just cleaning up my mess. It is an active construction site, so there's stuff everywhere, but we definitely try and make sure we always leave the space cleaner than we found it. On this side, you're going to see me go ahead and I zoom in and give you kind of a little bit of a breakdown of how we do our Keystone punch downs. I've talked about it in other videos in the past. We use a little black tool that holds the Keystone in your hand so that you're not just punching down directly into your hand. When you're doing 2 or 3, it's not that big of a deal, but when you start doing 10, 15 of these at a time, your hand is going to thank you for using a tool like this and not taking all the compression every time directly into your hand. Our keystones are all labeled, just about all of them are. We use a punch down tool, and you're going to match the colors based on however you are terminating it. Here we always use the B scheme for termination. That's the standard here in the US. So you see me go ahead and I pull that sheathing up as close as I can to the edge of it so that I have as minimal exposed as possible. Cut the spline out, remove the pull string, separate out my wires. I like to bend them all back towards me so that I can get that sheathing as close as possible to the edge. And then that way, when I clip on the two little pieces at the top, all of the cabling is sucked up inside that thing and it's nice and tight. So you see how I kind of bent those all back towards myself. It just makes it easier so that nothing's crossed. And it really is just like I'm sure there's people out there that will say like you can't have X amount untwisted and you lose X amount of speed. At that point, we do a lot of cables. We certify all of them. We test everything. We've never had anything fail this way. So this is how we do it. We use pretty generic Keystone wall plates. We order them directly from Monoprice, but they do work well for what we do. Here you see us just putting in a low voltage box that has the two dogs. And then I'm just going to push the slack all back up into that wall in case anything ever changes. We have enough that we can, if we have to move it for any reason, it goes bad and we need to restrip back, there's plenty of slack on that for us. And then you're going to see us just go ahead and organize all of the drops. All the white cable that you see is that outdoor rated Cat 6. All the blue is the indoor riser cable that we used for the APs and for the keystones throughout the property. And we just go ahead and organize it. This isn't necessarily enough cables to break out like a cable comb, but we do use them frequently. You'll see a video coming up soon where we did close to 30 drops in a temple that we're working on, and we're going to end up cable combing that. So I'll do a video on how one of those works. You can buy them all over the place on the internet. We 3D printed ours. The equipment that ended up getting used in this was a UDM Pro, a 16-port switch from Unifi, and then we have a small watt box in the back for power management. So you'll see us, we end up leaving a pretty big loop on the back because, like I mentioned earlier in the video, that we are going to come back and put in a patch panel and actually do keystones on these. So we want to make sure we have plenty of room for that. If you're ever interested in hiring us for local work or consulting work, all of our contact information is always available in the description. We work remotely on anything Unifi if you are having trouble or need help, and then we are available locally throughout New England to do any wiring jobs, home or business. We specialize in automation, lighting control, security, and networks. And at the end here, you'll see just a couple shots of a couple of the cameras that we put in, and then a finished photo of the rack. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Ask us your questions that you have. Tell us what we did wrong. Tell us what we did right. We'd love to hear it.